Don't be too premature with your applause. But thanks, Simon. Thank you, Laura, for inviting me. Tonight I should have been in the Henley Business School because I'm doing a 2-day course over there, but Laura said come here. And I wasn't going to say no. There's a lot to go through. I'm going to whiz through some of this stuff. Interrupt, tweet live, criticise on Twitter, be open, but please interrupt and ask questions because I respond better to a human-to-human conversation. As Simon said, I was one of the very first people to tweet in Reading around 2009. RDG was our hashtag, which is short for Reading. And then someone in Japan took that over, so we changed it to RDG UK, and then that got newspaper news. But there's a few of us Reading geeks. We started a Reading geek community as well back in 2009. I give a background. Spent 28 years in retail. Most of that is Waitrose. Shop floor 1986 as a 16-year-old. Not in 218, which is the Henley. So it's really sad. I know the branch numbers. So I worked my way up from the shop floor. I was just a fruit and veg weekend guy. But there was something about Waitrose that inspired me to stay in the company. And I was very lucky. I went to head office. I was in charge of local marketing for 5 years. So I used to buy local media, local radio, local press, launch new stores before this one was relocated. Because it used to be, for those of you in Henley, there used to be a little Waitrose. Quick show of hands. Anyone run their own retail business? No retailers, apart from will do. That's even better. We'll definitely open up a shop and open it up on the high street. Preferably this one. That doesn't count. Physical shops. I'm only interested in physical shops. So I'm a dinosaur because I'm 45. So I am really passionate about retailers keeping their shops open, keeping the high street going, opening new shops, starting a new retail business. This year, 2015, we're hearing bad news, high street's declining and everything. But I see people who have got an idea for a shop, and I keep saying, do it. So these are some of the companies I've worked for and with. I've got a few slides here on my particular approach. So Social Retail is a company I founded on the 4th of July 2008. After leaving Waitrose, Toys R Us, Hamleys, I raised £1 million venture capital, ran a business for 2 years from my old school, which was a social enterprise. And I was swore that I'd never work with VCs ever again, because it's quite a painful experience for those of you who've done venture capital. And I was going to start a business which was entirely based on client income. So having £1 million on the balance sheet in the bank account didn't actually help me grow the business. So I've made loads of mistakes. So with Social Retail, I decided I was going to help retailers, large retailers, around about £100 million turnover or more, with 50 stores, to help them socialise their shop floor. But back then, in 2008, people weren't really buying social media. Simon can probably relate to this. We had to keep pitching, the benefit of social media. So while I was waiting for the retailers to start to engage with me, I'd started a charity called Reading Rock Academy, because I've got an interest in teaching music and teaching guitar, and registered guitar teacher for 17 years. And I thought we'll do some local tweeting. So I just started my first tweet at the Rock Academy. I have 3 Twitter profiles. At Social Retail, which is really tonight. More exciting is at the Rock Academy, so please talk to them. Don't just follow them. Talk to them, at them, talk to them. That is now a registered charity. So eventually, after 7 years, most of that was tweeting live commentary every Friday, somewhere in Reading, as the Rock Academy. I wouldn't tweet as Pete Doyle, that's my other handle. That's boring, don't follow that. Unless you're interested in the sunflowers I'm growing in my back garden, which is not very interesting at all. So I just learned how you can build a company, build a brand, if we want to use that word, through a branded account, not my own personal one. And I started adding value. I was tweeting live commentary. I would do the homework. I would fish out bands of original music. I'm not interested in covers bands, just original music, because the Rock Academy, as we call it now, is helping teenagers to write songs and perform their songs. Now, for those of you who know Reading, I had a crazy idea, and I was advised against it, to hire the Hexagon and do a live music event. And the council said, no, don't do it, because if you've got teenagers there, it'll kick off, there'll be drugs, alcohol, all sorts of stuff. But because I raised venture capital, the business I ran was a health and safety company on school trips. So I knew how to do risk assessments. I knew how to make it child friendly. and CRB checks and all that sort of stuff. So I thought I'd go for it. I put £5,000 down, hired the Hexagon, and burnt out trying to sell 1,000 tickets at £5 a go. But we did it, and I did it through tweeting live and sharing stuff that was happening, music stuff that was happening, connecting with people who were interested in live music and original music. So all these people, I think it's around about 6,000 tweets I've done over the 7 years on that account. But every one of those is a human tweet. It's me being somewhere, checking in to do stuff. It's not automated. It's not a campaign. It's just me giving live commentary. If people tweeted me on a Monday, I'd completely blank them. But if they tweeted me on a Friday between 7 and 11, I'd engage. And I used to hand out rock points. So I'd score a band, give them 30 rock points. And a guy in Paris, Dave the Rave, 1947 in Paris, would constantly retweet stuff. Never met him. I gave him 1 million rock points, and he said, "What can I do with them?" I said, "It's up to you. You do what you want." I thought, he's mad. But then I thought, well, no, I'm mad. And I saw him on Twitter hand out those rock points to other people he knew. This doesn't exist. It's a made-up currency. Made-up currency. But then I started to understand this idea of human engagement, local engagement, the importance of local hashtags. So really, I'm going to talk about that. And it's awesome what Redbury are doing. Absolutely awesome. I'm so honoured to be part of your inaugural night, because this is a revolution. Social media is local. And I've got some stats to share with you from about an hour ago. So I'll share some stats with you. This is my approach if you're a business or a charity. This is really the one slide, and in this chronological order, is listening to people, planning your reply, which is really important, and then engaging in a conversation. There's some very clever people. I don't know this guy, but I saw this quote and I thought it was a really nice quote. And it sort of summed up my approach of what I'd learned from 6 years of tweeting on a Friday night, is listening closely, replying well. Now, when we're on the shop floor, we have to listen to customers, because it's a dying trade on the shop floor. So we have to listen to their needs. Now, when you're engaging on social media, it's how often do you follow someone and they don't thank you for following them? You know, the first etiquette on the shop floor is, thank you for following. Can I help you? And it's not a collection of followers. I don't talk about the ego of having 1,000 or 1 million followers. I'd rather have one follower who can then influence other people. And shop floor Twitter is completely different to head office Twitter. Completely different. I won't play it now, but this video, you can have these slides, but this video inspired me to, has anyone seen this video from that still? I would recommend, have these slides, recommend you spend 2 minutes, 3 seconds watching it, because being trained in marketing at Waitrose and having a big agency and all the budget to go with it, we were told we could craft a message. And here, this guy is the advertiser. He's looking at his reflection. There's an ego there of the brand. And the lady in the restaurant scene, she's trying to have a conversation. He's not interested. He's saying, "I declare my love for you. I've put down £1 million on a TV commercial, and you still don't care." And she was saying, "You're not engaging." So when I saw that video, I thought, there's a different way of marketing. Now, as sort of humans, I think we do leave footprints in the snow. Sometimes we leave them deliberately. Please check in, find me. Hello, I'm here. So what I do is I try and help retailers understand this local psychology that I'd learned, this local use of Twitter. And then a couple of years ago, Mary Porter's project team asked me to do a training session for 22 independent retailers in Bedford. And I was very honoured. I'm sure they had far more professional people than me, but they were really interested in this whole idea of local engagement. So Digital Henley, is an awesome project, and I really hope it works, and I'll certainly support it. Now, what I do is I look at this data and I think, what can I gain from this as a retailer? So I'm thinking of a retailer here. There's people talking in my local area. I'm not talking about iBeacon stuff. That's completely different. What I'm talking about is a well-trained shop floor assistant to search locally when it's not busy in the store, because that's important. When they get those moments in the week where they can do this stuff, they can just see who's happening locally, who's following. And what I discovered is some people locally are actually more influential than the local press or the local radio. They're very active, and hopefully you guys will all be active in Henley as well. So the next 2 slides, I haven't shown anyone yet, because I've only put it on here an hour ago. So, anyone from Marlow here? Anyone from Cookham? No? You're all from Henley, yeah? So, you know hashtags, every town, every village has a hashtag. That's my given information. I will publish these hashtags, but every town has one. Now, Reading is really bad because reading and Reading doesn't work as a hashtag. So we use the acronym RDG, or RDG UK. And when I was tweeting live from Reading every Friday, I created my own little suffix, if you like, if that's the right word, an extension to the local community. RDG bands was my one. So I wanted to create an environment for any local band, original musician, could encourage their fans to tweet live to that hashtag. So for 6 months I was tweeting live to myself, completely barking mad. And then the local press picked up on it, and the radio, and then it started to catch. And I'm really proud that that community still exists. So it's not a hashtag as a campaign that you see as a tagline on a TV show or on a brand campaign. It's a community of people. So for the first time, you are the Digital Henley hashtag. So what I thought I'd do is I'd just do a quick comparison of the last, say, 30 days. Who's used hashtag Henley? And let's compare it with Marlow. And Cookham, they're not here, so there we are. And here we are. Here's the results. So what this shows you is the orange line is Henley. Anyone with a tweet, so I'm very specific on Twitter there. Oops. Anyone who's tweeted Henley, you can see this over the last 30 days. The blue is Marlow, there we are, and the green is Cookham. I was surprised at Cookham, because I thought, no one's going to be using that hashtag. Woodley's very popular. I didn't put Reading on there. So what that says down there, if you can't read it, it says about 3,000. So over the last 30 days, 3,000 tweets have had that hashtag. Now, as local retailers, as local businesses, and Redbury, I'm sure will help you, that could be the same person just spamming stuff, or it could actually be individuals doing really interesting stuff. So I thought this is just an introduction to my little world of local digital communities. I went one step further. I thought this is the real-time data from 6:30 tonight. When Laura asked me to talk, I thought I'll stick record on, because I built an app that records geotagged tweets. It's linked into the back of the Twitter API. And what this said is, over the last 7 days, 55 geotagged tweets. So if you've got 3,000 people using that hashtag, not all of them have their geolocation switched on. But I'm sure this will grow over the next 5 to 10 years, and this will start to become rich data. Now, I know this sort of data, so I know what I'm looking for. Now, for me, the biggest surprise there is Instagram. So what it said, of those 55 geotagged tweets, 42% of them were someone using Instagram. That is unusual, and I'll come on to that in a minute. Over here, of those geotagged tweets, I look at all the hashtags that people are using, and Henley comes up at the top, which is good. Somewhere in there is love, which is second. That's pretty cool as well. So people love Henley. I could have done digital Henley. So I'm sure as the founders of that hashtag, you can start to build this analytics. So what I did back in 2013 is I published a report called Tweeting from the High Street, because I couldn't think of a better name. And I thought, just out of curiosity, I'll record the geotagged tweets from Reading, Newcastle, Manchester and Bristol, just to see what it looks like across the country. And there were around about 72,000 geotagged tweets, and I looked at them, analysed them, and I thought I'd do it again in 2014, and I'm just about to finish writing the report for the 2015. 2015, 2 years on, 72,000 has gone up to 154,000. The increase is about 60% increase in number of tweets, but most importantly, 55% increase in the number of Twitter accounts. That's important for Twitter, certainly their share price. So there are new people opening up new accounts on Twitter. So if you want to look at the geographical spread, it looks a bit like that. I would expect a major conurbation to be quite big. So this has impact on not just retail, but local town planners, high streets. Let's save the high street. So I see the high street as a visible layer and this invisible layer. And it's the invisible layer which is actually part of our community. Newcastle will stay up an hour later than Reading. Don't know why. Time of day is really important. Day of the week is really important. And that's obvious, isn't it? but we can see it in the data. And then I look at conversation topics, what's happening locally. So here, this is from the same Easter period, and this is when the boat race was on in 2013, this one. But there was a stag party on in Newcastle, down there as well. Paul apparently got married. So that's good for our voyeurism effect, but actually no, what it says to me is that there's local people, there's local data out there. Now you have to be responsible with that data. You need to aggregate it and find out, for a retailer, one of my clients is Maplin, for example. I've trained 600 staff in Maplin. All 217 Maplin stores tweet live. They have been now for 9 months. And those guys on the shop floor need to know this stuff because they need to know who to connect with. And when their customer comes through the door, they've got to give them an intelligent welcome. But I wasn't satisfied with just looking at the UK, so I had a quick look at globally. I thought, let's compare London with Paris and New York. This was a typical 24-hour period in Paris, London and New York. Now what this told me is that the top line there is a geotag tweet that was done from a desktop device, not a mobile phone. This is 2013. 2013, bless you. And if you notice there was 0%, this is 2 years ago, no geotag tweets done from a desktop in New York. Compare that to Paris, 66% of the tweets. And London's somewhere in the middle. So Paris is not very mobile. London is more mobile than Paris, but New York is even more mobile than London. So when we talk about mobile, we're starting to get some stats on what's going on here. So my 3-step plan of sort of social media is listening first. And listening locally is really important. And I love this picture because if you live in Reading, you'll see that is what it looks like outside the church in Reading. So I always say to my clients, if you're looking at social media, you really need help for people like Redbury to understand this stuff and build a strategy that's built to last. That sounds really common sense. But I've borrowed this phrase from my late father, who was a carpenter, and he used to say, measure twice, cut once, because he didn't want to use that much wood. So I use this expression when I'm training people on local social media, or just any social media, it doesn't have to be local, is think twice and tweet once. Just happens to be the name of a book that I'm trying to publish. I had to get that in, sorry. So this sort of planning phase, so you've done your listening, let's look at the planning. How do we do planning? I take a view which is very similar to the way I used to do health and safety risk assessments on school trips. What's that got to do with social media? But this whole idea of, if you're a big brand like Maplin, 240 million, or Waterstones, if you put your staff on social media, that's a big risk. So you've got to plan and think about how you're going to engage. And also, it's a moving animal. What we used to do last year may be out of fashion this year. And some retailers are not even tweeting from their shop floor yet. Some of them are not really engaging on social media. They're still broadcasting. So I'm looking at what's this trend going to be like? What's the legacy of the fuss of social media? Where are we going to end up? Now, I particularly believe that it's going to be operational. I think it's going to be customer service driven. I think as customers, we're going to be armed with more information, and we're going to be tweeting people and demanding a higher service. And quite rightly, the retailers who are responding to that, I think, will win. The others will end up like Woolworths. So it's really important to do that risk assessment, look at your brand compliance if you're a big company, and then sort of plan your communities. Where are we going to engage in these conversations? So I take Twitter, for example. I would take all their followers and help them build clusters. And if you can cluster your followers into conversation topics, you start to understand, actually, let's stop putting new followers in. Let's just try and engage with the ones we've got. And let's try and trade, ultimately, because we're a business, and try and sell them things. But you do need to think about images, video, how are we going to do this? So although I'm a big passionate person about customer service, you still need to tell people you're there as well. There's still a broadcast element of what's going on here. But if you're a large company, in the organisations that I work with, I focus on the shop floor people, because they know what's just come in, they know what's going to come in tomorrow. They can advise customers. So one of my clients is Hillier Garden Centres, they had their first sale within 8 days of the Hillier Garden Centre in Bath tweeting. And the MD approached me. I did a talk back in 2011, and the MD said, Pete, my customers are over 60, they're not on Twitter, but they care about gardens. So as soon as I showed them how the customer can tweet a picture of their garden, and the store can give advice about what plant to put, all of a sudden Pinterest becomes quite a good customer tool, a visual tool. So retailers are still working. How do we do this stuff? The advantage is an independent retailer, because you don't need to worry about big approval processes. You can just do this stuff. And that's why I started my business training small retail businesses. So I would always be an advocate for empowering your staff to do it, but train them, and advise them and learn quickly. So I've with Macklin, for example, we trained all these staff 9 months ago, and we're now collecting around about 10,000 tweets a month, and we're tagging those tweets for quality. And if a store does a really good tweet and it's a really good engaging conversation, they get a score of 5. If it's a non-compliant tweet, they get a score of 1, and we give them advice. Normally within 2 hours of that tweet going out. So we've started to gamify that now, so we have Tweet of the Week, best store and all that sort of stuff. I mentioned a bit about Hillier. This was back in 2011, 2012. This really got me into the big companies are still not doing this yet. The smaller companies are doing it. And there's a video, this guy was awesome. I don't do marketing because I'm not very good at it. I let my customers talk about what their experience is. So this guy said, Twitter for them wasn't working. They felt like they were broadcasting, they weren't engaging in a conversation. So his view and his strategy for Hillier Garden Centres was to have a small following of about 100 people in every garden centre, but a very engaged store. They could have gone into e-commerce. They could have done what everyone says, shut down your shops and go online. Or they could become a social retailer and start to engage with social media and social technology. But most importantly, this is the stuff that I like, seeing the tweets. It's difficult to read that one, but this is an event going on in a garden leisure centre, another one of my clients, competitor Hillier, but they're all friends. This is an event happening in the car park. So events and social media are a really good combination. But I like this sort of stuff as well, where the customer has actually taken the time to buy a product and tweet it back to the store that they bought it from. And then the store can say, I know what will work just well next to that duck. And they can cross-sell and upsell. But in a human way, not in a deal way. And this one is one of my favourite tweets. Again, it's a customer down in Henley. They put this up there, and the store can engage and flatter the customer and say, this is a really good purchase. I like the choice. Now, this is stuff that we couldn't do before social media. You can't do it on radio, you can't do it on press. So this is where I see a retailer sort of starting to become a social retailer. That's the second time I mentioned that. I'll probably say it 3 times. So these are my top 5 tips. And this is my last slide, so please ask questions. From my experience of using social media, it's important to listen. It's important to listen and plan your reply, assess the risks of the applying, and also assess the risks when someone follows you as well. It's your business. If it's your own business, who's just connected with me? Let's have a look at their profile. Do I want to block them? Are they spam? Or are they a potential customer and therefore I want to engage with them? And all that can happen within 4 or 5 seconds. Or when you get really good, probably half a second. Narrow your conversation topics, which is really important. Don't get involved. When I was training the guys in Bedford, there was a hairdresser's, and he was getting involved in all sorts of random conversations that was happening locally. Nothing whatsoever to do with the fact that he offers his customers a drink when they come to get their hair cut. I said, whoa, hold on, what's going on there? You don't go to the hairdresser's for a beer. He's got a little beer going on. You can talk about that stuff, because that's experiential. And we know that the big retailers haven't got that yet. So he's got a bit of an upper hand. So narrow is good, niche is very good. Empower as many people in your business to talk about you. If you've got skeletons in your cupboard, switch off Twitter, clear out the skeletons, and then switch on Twitter again, because you will be found out. And this is why the big companies are saying, don't talk about it. Let's control the message. You can't. So, and customers will find out anyway. And last but not least, which I'm still trying hard to do, is not to have an ego. Because I think the ego of a brand, if you watch that video, you'll see what we were trained to do is to put spend behind that brand, but there's a different way of spending and investing in a brand. And most importantly, it's local. That's really what I wanted to talk about, so thank you for listening. Does anyone have any questions at all?
I was going to ask about the technologies. Is it mobile phones and the Twitter app, or do you recommend and think of other applications to engage with audiences?
In terms of local?
Using Twitter, for example. Is it, when you get the teams on the ground doing it,
yeah.
Do you use just the Twitter app?
Yeah, well, it's easy because Twitter gives this stuff away for free. There's a free app and it's improving. Twitter bought TweetDeck. If you know TweetDeck, it's a really good app. Twitter have just bought a company called Genip, which sells social data. There's only 2 companies in the world that sell social data, and Twitter bought one of them. And they know the future of this is selling data, not personal data, aggregated data. So if you're into digital marketing or you want to, as a business, get into this, you can actually, some of this stuff you can get for free. Hit the advanced search button on Twitter, which is awesome. There's crown jewels. I could do it now if I was online. You could go in there, anyone within 3 miles of this point, because it knows my reference, who's tweeting now. And you can get that for free. And what you're doing here, I wouldn't underestimate the power of what you're doing here and what Redbury are doing, creating a digital community based on a single location, which just happens to house one of the most famous, awesome rock gods, George Harrison, ever. Didn't meet him, unfortunately, but could meet his son. He still hangs around. Now, Henley is a really important place, and I'm not just saying that because I'm here. When I was tweeting here about 4 or 5 years ago, when I was doing my Friday night tweets, I thought I'd venture out from Reading, and I went to Henley, and there was bugger all live music going on. But there's a bit of a music scene now. You know, there was some event happening a couple of weeks ago. One of our bands came along as well. So I would say get involved if you want to be a local citizen. Get involved in your local community. Contribute to Digital Henley. Add value. Don't give things away for free, but just add value. You know, just be a good community member. And it'd be good to come back in a year, see how that community's growing. You'll probably be outgrowing this. But Cookham are way behind you. Way behind. Yes. And Marlowe's catching up. Yeah, we like Marlowe as well. Marlowe has Nick Hayward living there, actually. There we are. Just in Bourne End, actually. It's more Bourne End. Cool. Any other questions? Yes?
So Terence highlighted the pitfall, the boss saying, you've got to have an app. But lots of people say, you've got to have Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, all these channels. So what's your view on how important it is to ask why do you want them, what's your plan for them, versus getting out there, engaging, and figuring out as you go?
Well, I always say I've got to have a customer, because I'm a trader at the end of the day. You know, I know, having started a business with £1 and a smartphone, the most important thing is a customer, not an app. Use someone else's app, get someone else to pay for it, use the free apps, but just learning how to engage with them. Whether it's Twitter or Instagram, or my daughter uses Snapchat far too much. I think she's done 200,000 Snapchats. But use the free apps. But really, most importantly here is plan your conversation. So what is your business doing? What are you special at? Normal rules of business haven't changed. You know, we've got to find our USP, and let's get straight to that conversation topic and contribute. You can retweet other people talking good stuff. For me, when I'm doing my live tweets, it's always upbeat and positive. It's never negative. And I use it in a B2B context now. So I go to conferences and I tweet live. And I was tweeting live. Sainsbury's were talking. I wanted them as a client. And while the guy was talking, I was kind of talking to their corporate PR on Twitter live. I was tweeting his thing. People were crowding in. And by the end of a 40-minute talk, I had about 1,000 impressions on that conversation. Because Twitter give you live metrics, which is awesome. So all I did was I sat there and I made the effort to go to the conference. So I think the future of this sort of stuff is it's offline. You know, using digital offline is where it's going, I think. Yeah.
So do you think that social is the way to bridge the gap between the traditional stores and the websites, which are, you can have companies which are very much the same company, but their web experience is so far removed from their stores that you wouldn't even know they were related?
Yes.
And do you think that's the way to...
It is, and you know, in '99 I was the e-commerce manager for Toys R Us, and the MD was shouting at me if I didn't sell sales online, so I took up to 5 million online. But all I did was I just switched sales from offline to online, and I created a vending machine for toys. You know, we knew how to get the sales because we were traders. We did some really good graphics, but there was no human intervention. And you know, if you wanted to take it back to Toys R Us, for those of you who shop in Toys R Us, it's not the best customer service experience, and that hasn't changed. And I was with them yesterday talking to them, and I said, "Don't do this. Sort out your skeletons." You know, so it's easier to start a business today. It's easier to set up a shop because you can start on social. You can engage with your followers even before the shop's open. You know, we're going to be opening in 3 weeks in Henley High Street. Come and see us. You know, and you don't have to spend money on paid for advertising anymore. So I think social is going to be the bridge of the digital. We talk about omni-channel, but I also think the guys on the shop floor are the future of e-commerce. Now that doesn't make sense to some retailers because they think they've got to shut down shops. But you know, if we train our shop floor staff well, e-commerce becomes local e-commerce. Sorry, yes.
So I'm from New Zealand, and traditionally, statistically speaking, New Zealanders are avid consumers of social media, but we don't actually produce much in terms of, we read lots of tweets and Facebook stuff, we don't actually tweet much or post many Facebook things. Do you find that it's the same here as lots of people will read tweets, but they won't actually tweet back, or they'll follow a bit?
I couldn't possibly talk on behalf of the 70 million people in the country. I just avoid general statements. All I know is I know how to engage with people in Reading on a Friday night and focus my conversation topic on my charity, readingrockacademy.com or the Rock Academy. So I only talk from experience. I'm not an academic, although the Henley Business School think I am, and I said I'm not. And that's an insult if, you know. But so I would say it's a personal thing. The talk is called Getting Personal. If you get a chance to watch that film, that video, it's all about being personal. And when we did e-commerce in 99, 2000, it was very impersonal. We were creating really good websites that could generate millions of turnover. But if you wanted to ask a question, my daughter's really into music, what have you got for her? You couldn't talk to a human. So I think the new e-commerce retailers will be personal human interfaces. Really big search box, not the chat stuff, you know, it could be over the phone still. So I would say, well, I know the UK is leading the world in e-commerce. Fact, we're beating the US. You know, 20% of all our retail sales, about 120 billion pounds is done online in the UK. 1/5 of every pound spent in retail is online. Online being mobile or digital, you know. And that's going to grow. We saw some figures on Tuesday from the BRC, the British Retail Consortium. High Street is declining still. So we need to create these digital hotspots, these digital communities. So I really hope you can all get involved in what Simon and Laura and Tim are doing here, because this is really cool stuff. You know, contribute, add value, and get involved.
I come from a background of running companies that produce large global events, and our clients were always trying to get us to quantify the impact of their, in many cases, very large budget expense, and so which is fair enough, extremely difficult to do. Have you or anybody else done any work on quantifying the impact of social media on businesses, sales, revenues? I mean, Henley or Maplin, you know, in simple terms, they weren't using social media. They went through a year using social media and this all sales spike and so forth.
I'm going to avoid the answer to that question because it all depends on how they're using social media. So you can't make a statement saying social media rocks, because if they're posting and spamming, it's a waste of time. You won't get any return. But if they're engaging in a conversation or doing a post with a question mark or contributing, then you'll get some engagement. And with my first client, John Baker, Chapter 1 Books in Woodley, he got a 5% uplift. Maplin's are somewhere around 9% uplift in sales.
In what period of time?
That's over 14 months of working with Maplin. Now that increase in sales has come from the 3-step process. You engage first, then you get them in the store, and then you buy something. And we're working on things like tweet and collect, tweet and reserve. So we're just starting to innovate how you can use that conversation.
And sorry, but in that 14-month period, you're not aware of anything else that was going on at Maplin that could have resulted in
the 9% was in a control. The 9% was in a control store in Rotherham that we had. We did a pilot and we controlled. Rotherham was where At the time he said, nothing happens in Rotherham. Can't say that now. It does quite a lot. We didn't know about it. So Rotherham was our control because nothing had happened in Rotherham. We used a new store, Canary Wharf, and we used Northampton, so Middle England. And Rotherham went up 9%. Canary Wharf was second year, so it was still growing anyway, so we couldn't say. Now, I never claim that, and you'll never see me talk about that. I know I'm recording. But I don't want to make that claim because I don't want to perpetuate a myth that social media generates sales, because it won't if you're just shouting and spamming at people. And I specialise in shop floor, building footfall. So, we could have people counters and say, it's growing. I'm trying to stop the trend of people shutting down shops and boarding up the high streets. I'm trying to educate our retailers to do this. I need to wrap up because we want to hear about Ben. Yeah, no, you must hear Ben as well because he's come all the way down from Manchester just to, he's had a busy day. So please.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to
Thanks.
say thank you very much.